And I'm watching. The minute Charlie was shot, he called me, says, "Dad, Charlie's been shot in the neck. Please call every pastor and pray." I said, "Okay, son." He has wits about him. He was just directing. He had blood all over him. And
it seems like somebody's lying. New footage has been circulating showing Turning Point's chief of staff, Mikey McCoy's odd reaction right after Charlie Kirk got shot. Right after Charlie Kirk got shot, Mikey McCoy can be seen plugging his ears and instantly turning around and walking away slowly. People are noticing that he's on a cell phone talking to somebody. And this is kind of odd because everybody else around there is running and ducking for cover. And so it begs the question, who was Mikey talking to on the cell phone? Mikey's father, Pastor Rob McCoy, claims that Mikey called him right after Charlie got shot. Take a listen.
I'm looking at my son who's 24 years old. Justin's the CFO, chief financial officer, and Mikey's the chief of staff. And I'm watching. The minute Charlie was shot, he called me, says, "Dad, Charlie's been shot in the neck. Please call every pastor and pray." I said, "Okay, son." He has wits about him. He was just directing. He had blood all over him. And
Pastor Rob McCoy also claims that Mikey is covered in blood. But that's odd because Mikey quickly turned and walked away without even looking underneath the tent to see if Charlie was okay. According to James Lee's investigation, Mikey McCoy called Erika Kirk, and this is per the New York Times. Check this out.
Who was he calling? Well, I did some digging, and according to the New York Times, it was one Erika Kirk. Quote, Miss Kirk was sitting in her mother's hospital room at 11:23 a.m. local time in Phoenix when she saw the number of her husband's longtime assistant, Michael McCoy, appear on her phone. In retrospect, she said she knew the words, "He's been shot," before Mr. McCoy screamed them. According to official records, Charlie Kirk was shot at 12:23 p.m. Mountain Time, which is 11:23 in Phoenix. So if the New York Times is being 100% accurate, the only person that Mikey could have been on the phone with is Erika.
What if the person you thought was loyal to Charlie Kirk had been preparing a power grab? What if his own pastor, live on air, dropped a bombshell so big it could rewrite his legacy? Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you will make you question everything. Charlie Kirk, a polarizing figure, a conservative youth icon, and the force behind Turning Point USA, known simply as TPUSA. He built an empire from his late teens, fueled by fiery speeches and a vision to reshape campus politics. Then came tragedy. On September 10, 2025, Charlie was assassinated during a speaking event at Utah Valley University. And in the aftermath, his wife, Erika Kirk, stepped in. What followed wasn't just grief, it was a lightning rod for controversy. In the weeks following Charlie Kirk's death, the inside of TPUSA reportedly shifted from a bustling political machine into something more tense, guarded, and uncertain. According to coverage in outlets like The Guardian and Daily Caller, Erika Kirk's rapid elevation to CEO stunned even longtime supporters. Some praised it as a natural continuation of Charlie's vision, while others whispered that the transition felt unusually swift, almost pre-planned. Her appointment was officially unanimous, but the suddenness triggered speculation online.
I'm thinking he's brand new. Maybe this was his first pastor gig, or maybe he's just a chaplain calling himself a pastor or something. But your response would have been something like, Charlie Kirk was a friend of mine. He was also a friend of Candace. Everybody grieves in different ways. Part of the grieving process is what Candace is currently going through. Whether what she is chasing down or what she is pursuing is true or not is not for any of us to say, because as the feds admit, nobody has all the facts. We support Candace in this time, as I'm sure Charlie would want us to, since Candace was a friend of Charlie's. We encourage Candace to go through all the phases of mourning, and know that we are here for her throughout the entire process, and we are waiting with open arms once that process has resolved itself.
Why did the board move so quickly, and what discussions took place behind closed doors during those chaotic first days? Meanwhile, social media and conspiracy forums ignited with theories about a reported financial transfer highlighted by Hindustan Times, where commenters claimed Erika allegedly received a large sum shortly before Charlie's death. Though no hard evidence has ever surfaced to prove wrongdoing, the rumors spread like wildfire, feeding into a growing sense that something didn't add up. That atmosphere was echoed on Reddit, where anonymous posters, some claiming to be former TPUSA staff or volunteers, began describing their experiences in the days leading up to Charlie's final event. They wrote about schedule changes that didn't make sense, access badges being unexpectedly deactivated, last-minute staff reshuffling, and sudden changes in leadership communication that felt strange or controlled. One user described the office mood as eerily quiet. Another claimed that people who had been close to Charlie were abruptly sidelined or kept out of the loop. Though unverifiable, the sheer volume of these posts painted a picture of an organization under internal strain. Even more dramatic were claims that after Erika stepped in, the energy at TPUSA shifted from mission-driven to tightly managed, as though the entire infrastructure were being reorganized. Supporters interpreted the shift as necessary leadership during a tragedy. Critics saw it as a consolidation of power. Some insiders reportedly believed that Erika's presence brought a new style, less collaborative, more top-down, and that decisions were being made faster than the organization could emotionally process the loss of its founder. All of these swirling emotions, rumors, and insider accounts merged into one powerful narrative: that behind the inspirational speeches, memorial ceremonies, and calls for unity, TPUSA was undergoing a turbulent and transformative struggle for direction, identity, and control. At the heart of the entire saga sits Erika's grief, a grief so raw and visible that even people outside the political world felt its weight. In the days immediately after Charlie's death, she stepped onto a Fox News broadcast and delivered one of the most haunting, emotionally charged speeches ever seen from a political spouse in modern American media. Standing before a sea of cameras, her voice trembling yet determined, she declared, "The cries of this widow will echo," a sentence that instantly ricocheted across social platforms, news segments, and memorial videos. It wasn't just a statement. It felt like a vow, a declaration that her pain would not be silent, that her heartbreak itself had become a form of testimony. Viewers described her tone as a blend of biblical lament and fierce resolve, reflecting both unimaginable loss and an unwavering promise to continue the mission Charlie had carried so publicly. You could see, in her tightly clasped hands and watery eyes, a woman torn between devastation and duty, balancing motherhood, leadership, and widowhood all at once in front of millions. Then came another emotional revelation, this time reported by the Daily Caller. Erika shared that Charlie had left behind hours of unused speeches, unpublished writings, and a massive archive of unshared content he had created in his relentless work ethic. She described the recordings as if they were the voice of a husband still whispering from beyond death, insisting his mission continue. Her plan, she said, was not merely to preserve these speeches, but to bring them to life, releasing them gradually so that Charlie's voice, ideas, and leadership would remain active in the movement he built. In her telling, this wasn't just a digital archive. It was a living continuation of the man she loved, a way to ensure their children and millions of supporters never felt the void of his absence as sharply as she did. For supporters, it felt like a sacred trust. For critics, it raised complicated questions about legacy and power. But for Erika, it was clearly something deeper than politics. Her grief transformed into purpose. Her heartbreak became a mission. And in those moments, what the world witnessed wasn't just a widow speaking, it was a woman attempting to carry the weight of an empire, with nothing but memory and faith holding her together. The public fallout after Erika Kirk stepped into the spotlight was swift, explosive, and deeply polarizing. Social media became a battleground almost overnight. On Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and Reddit, users dissected every frame of her speeches, every crack in her voice, every tear that slid or didn't slide down her face. Some viewers swore they saw a woman shattered by grief, holding her family and her late husband's movement together with sheer emotional force. Others insisted her sincerity felt rehearsed, her timing too precise, her sudden immersion into political leadership too perfectly choreographed. Hashtags like Stand with Erika, Questions for TPUSA, and Charlie Kirk Legacy trended simultaneously, reflecting a nation split between empathy and suspicion. Underneath thousands of posts, the same debate repeated endlessly. Was Erika a grieving widow trying to preserve her husband's mission, or a new power figure capitalizing on a tragedy? Every emotional clip was slowed down, every public appearance scrutinized, every moment of silence replayed with commentary. And as the online debate intensified, the line between mourning and political theater grew blurrier by the hour. Into this storm stepped conservative commentators and influencers, many of whom had known Charlie personally, and their reactions only amplified the divide. On Reddit's political communities, clips circulated of prominent voices like Candace Owens demanding greater transparency from TPUSA's board, questioning how decisions were being made and whether the organization was honoring Charlie's vision or rewriting it. Some activists expressed concern that the movement had become too insular and that Erika's sudden influence was being accepted without public explanation.
I've been watching Erika Kirk, and I don't mean like one clip, right? I mean watching her, watching how she moves, how she positions herself, how she's being used. And I can't lie, it's getting weird. Because when your public grief starts looking like an Adam and Eve commercial, that's not faith. That's branding. And it's gross. And the wild part is she's not being objectified. She's participating. She's found her place in the performance. The beautiful believer, the holy widow, the vessel for the message. Erika Kirk figured out how to turn devotion into influence. Not the loud kind, though. The curated, palatable kind. You know, the one that makes far-right politics look gentle. She wraps white Christian nationalism in soft femininity, in perfectly timed tears and God's plan captions. And the people around her are eating it up. Because every movement like this needs a face. Someone who makes extremism look nurturing instead of dangerous. She's not on stage with men like J.D. Vance by accident. She's there because she makes his ideology look marketable. She's proof that the patriarchy will always find a woman to front the campaign. But real talk, since her husband died, she's been everywhere. Podcasts, conferences, stages. Grieving publicly in a way that doesn't feel accidental. Because grief sells when it looks holy. When it sounds like faith instead of fury. That hug with Donald Trump, that wasn't a spiritual moment. That was a moment designed to make people feel safe with him. Because nothing says redemption like a woman weeping in your arms, right? And whether she realizes it or not, she's become the emotional shield of a movement. She absorbs the criticism, softens the image, right? She sanctifies the message. So here's the thing. Erika Kirk is not naive. She is strategic. But when your brand becomes a faith-based fairy tale, you start serving a system that'll never serve you back. Because to them, she's only as valuable as her pain. The second she stops crying on cue, the second she stops being useful, they'll find another soft-spoken believer to stand in the same light and call it revival. That's how these movements work. They sanctify women's suffering as proof of men's virtue. So yeah, I've been watching Erika Kirk. And the more I see, the clearer it gets. This isn't about faith, this is about optics. She's not spreading Christianity, she's selling comfort. All for a movement built on control. And one day, Because it will come, the day when she stops fitting that narrative. The same hands holding her up are going to drop her. Because in that world, women like Erika aren't partners, they're props. And props are always replaceable.
Others defended her fiercely, pointing to her interviews, her faith, and her composure during unimaginable circumstances. Threads exploded with alleged insider claims, screenshots from anonymous staff, and impassioned arguments about whether TPUSA was becoming more centralized under Erika's leadership. Every leaked anecdote, verified or not, spread rapidly across social networks, feeding the growing sense that something major was shifting behind closed doors.
Charlie have forgiven his killer?
He's in heaven. And he sees everything, full picture. And I truly believe that if the Lord, which this does not happen, but if the Lord gave him an option to return back to earth, and if the Lord said, this is what your death is going to be the catalyst for, do you want to go back and exchange it? He'd say no.
Wow.
He'd say no.
Hey, so, this was weird, yeah? Come here, guys. Can we talk privately? That was pretty weird, huh? Hey, Republicans, come here. You don't gotta tell anybody this. That was pretty weird, right? You wanna watch it again? Sure.
And if the Lord said, do you want to go back? He'd say no.
Wow.
He'd say no.
He'd look God right in the face and he'd say, no.
Yeah? He'd stay dead?
If he knew what his death would be a catalyst for. What, all the memes? I don't want to see Erika Kirk trotted out on Jesse Waters politicizing her husband's death again. I'm not going to sit here and act like that's not performative bullshit. I'm not. I can't. And I'm not saying she's not grieving. But we all watched this same clip together. What happened to Charlie was horrible, whether you with them or not. You guys know I don't like them. And I don't want to critique the grieving. But what choice do I have? Not even on some conspiracy theory shit, like I could be. Dude, if I was Charlie, I would be pissed.
Almost immediately, online analysts began breaking down his phrasing. Reddit threads erupted with theories about what power moves meant. TikTok creators posted frame-by-frame breakdowns of his expression, his hesitation, the exact second his voice wavered. Some insisted this was the first real glimpse into internal tension, that the pastor had inadvertently revealed what TPUSA insiders had been trying to hide.
Why were there fucking pyrotechnics at his funeral before she spoke like it was some sort of WWE event, like it was some sort of fucking celebration? Why did she immediately come out and say, I'm going to take over Charlie's position at TPUSA? Don't you think that the overwhelming majority of people, especially if you're torn up psychologically and mentally, wouldn't you say, you know what, I'm going to step back from the spotlight. I'm going to have some time to mourn. I'm going to have some time to reflect. I'm going to have some time to rethink my life. I'm going to have some time to get my shit together since I just lost my fucking better half. No, she immediately jumped in and said, I'm going to take Charlie's position at TPUSA. Why are there videos that are all over social media, and they are, you can't deny it, of her crying, but it's 100% proven there are no tears. She's got the tissue, she's doing the thing, but then you zoom in, there's no tears. Why is that happening? You could yell at me for acknowledging reality, but I'm fucking acknowledging reality, and everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. Why is she hopping in front of every camera? Why is it that she's putting herself front and center, but then getting mad when people
disagreements, struggles for influence, maybe even conflict over Charlie's legacy? What if that slip was not a mistake, but a signal? What if he wasn't speaking out of grief, but out of conscience? What if he was trying to tell the world that TPUSA was no longer the united front it appeared to be, but a battleground where loyalty, faith, and ambition were colliding behind closed doors? The pastor's words became a kind of prophecy, a spark that ignited the largest wave of speculation since Charlie's death. And for many watching, this wasn't just a slip of the tongue. It was the first public hint that the real story of TPUSA's future might be far more complicated and far more turbulent than anyone had imagined. Here's where it all comes together: grief, ambition, and strategy. Erika Kirk is undeniably a central figure now, a widow thrust into the center of a political empire built by her husband, handed the torch at the very moment her world collapsed. But the question that haunts every headline, every live stream, every whispered conversation inside TPUSA's halls is this: is she simply preserving a legacy she never asked for? Or is it a high-stakes power play unfolding behind a curtain of tragedy? The pastor's slip, the swirling conspiracy theories, the viral debates over her sincerity, each one threads together into a single uncomfortable possibility. Maybe Charlie's empire was never meant to end with him. Maybe, in some way no one fully understood until now, the foundations he laid were built knowing that leadership would eventually shift. Whether by destiny, by tragedy, or by design, TPUSA stands at a crossroads that even Charlie himself might have anticipated. And when you step back and look at the whole picture, the emotional speeches, the rapid organizational decisions, the online fractures, the whispers from insiders, a question begins to form like a storm cloud on the horizon. What if this moment isn't an interruption of Charlie's vision, but the turning point he always predicted? What if the battle for TPUSA's future isn't between left and right, but within? What if this was never about the end of an era, but the beginning of a new one that will test everything the movement claims to stand for? Charlie Kirk's death rocked the political world, not just because a leader was lost, but because the movement he built was left suddenly, violently leaderless. But the fight, the real fight, may only be beginning. Not out there on college campuses or social media, but inside the very organization he created. The fight for identity, for direction, for truth. Erika now stands at a crossroads. One path paved with faith, devotion, and the promise of honoring her husband's legacy, and another path paved with influence, authority, and the undeniable gravity of power. The pastor's voice, that unexpected, trembling warning, echoed far beyond the studio walls. Was it simply heartbreak? Or was it a quiet plea for the world to pay attention before it's too late? And now the question shifts to you. What do you believe? Is this a story of a wife carrying the weight of a legacy she never asked for? Or is it a high-stakes power play unfolding behind a curtain of tragedy? Drop a comment below and let your voice be heard. Share this video if you believe the public deserves answers, and make sure to subscribe because we're not stopping here. We'll keep digging, uncovering, and speaking truth to power no matter where the story leads. Because in the world of Turning Point, sometimes the turning point is just the beginning.